Okay, viewers, Dr. JW, Ayoub. What we've got to understand is this is not just a random act. This is going on all across the world. It's continuous. It's usually immigrant related. Not always, but usually. Not always. And I don't know what they're going to do because they're just allowing it to continue. The politicians have exposed themselves so badly as not being servants of their nations that it's arrived at a place which I would call moral bankruptcy. The political dilemma of mass immigration. When government policy meets random public violence, one of the most powerful obligations of any government is not economic growth. It's not international reputation. It's not ideological consistency. It is the protection of its citizens. Everything else rests upon that foundation. The modern migration debate throughout Australia and the Western world increasingly centres on a question many governments appear to either ignore or are reluctant to confront directly. What happens when migration intake, vetting capability, assimilation capacity and public safety no longer move at the same speed? And the concern expressed by growing numbers of citizens is not that every migrant is dangerous. The concern is that governments may be introducing risks that they cannot adequately identify, measure, control, or contain before ordinary citizens pay the price, even paying the price with their lives. The psychology of random violence. Human beings can adapt to known risks. They can struggle to adapt to unpredictable risks. A person can avoid dangerous neighbourhoods. They can avoid criminal associates. They can avoid gang environments. What they cannot easily avoid is random violence. The mother shopping for groceries, the student travelling home, the pensioner waiting at the bus stop, the nurse finishing a night shift, a father filling his vehicle at the service station. These people are not participants in conflict. They are civilians. When violence appears without warning against ordinary civilians, society experiences something deeper than fear. It experiences uncertainty. The public begins asking a question that governments find difficult to answer or even confront. Could that have been me? Could that have been my family? Could that have been my child? And once that question enters the public mind, statistical reassurances lose much of their power. Citizens experience security behaviourally, not academically. The government responsibility problem. When a violent offender enters a country through migration pathways, the public naturally begins tracing responsibility backwards. Who admitted this person? What screening occurred? What identity verification occurred? What criminal history checks occurred? What ideological warning signs existed? What behavioural indicators were missed? What intervention opportunities failed? And every serious public attack creates a chain of accountability questions. The more severe the attack, the greater the scrutiny. Citizens do not simply see an offender, they see a system. Citizens do not simply see an offender, they see a system. A system that was supposed to identify danger before danger reached the street. Australia's growing question. Australia increasingly faces the same pressures affecting many Western nations. Population growth, housing strain, infrastructure pressure, health system demand, community fragmentation, cultural complexity, and in some cases, catastrophe. Competing expectations regarding law, authority, identity, religion, and social conduct. None of these pressures automatically produce violence. However, each additional pressure increases the consequences of policy failure. And the issue is therefore not merely numbers, it is governance capacity. How many people can be successfully screened, how many can be successfully integrated, and how many can be successfully assimilated into a common civic culture? How many can be effectively monitored when warning signs emerge? Governments rarely answer these questions clearly or at all. The assimilation challenge. Successful immigration, viewers, has historically depended upon a simple principle. Newcomers adapt to the host nation. The host nation does not continuously reconstruct itself around every incoming culture. Assimilation creates social predictability. Predictability creates trust. Trust creates cohesion. Cohesion creates stability. And when assimilation weakens, uncertainty expands. Citizens begin wondering whether common expectations regarding law, behaviour, public conduct, gender relations, authority, free speech, and social responsibility are still genuinely shared. And the debate then becomes larger than immigration. It becomes a debate about national continuity itself. The cost of political evasion. The greatest danger may not be migration. The greatest danger may be political avoidance. When governments appear unwilling to discuss public concerns honestly, civilian trust in the government begins to erode. And Australia is well into that process. When citizens believe officials are more concerned with managing perceptions than solving problems, suspicion and distrust manifests. When suspicion grows, social cohesion weakens. When cohesion weakens, every violent incident becomes larger than the incident itself. Not to say that the attempted beheading of Stephen, what was his name? Steve, the attempted beheading of Stephen Ogilvy. When cohesion weakens, every violent incident becomes larger than the incident itself, and we see that that can't be said relative to the attempted beheading of Stephen Ogilvy on the public streets of Ireland. And you'll see in that image, the guy that was doing it had no conscience about it at all. It becomes evidence in a wider public trial regarding governmental competence. In conclusion, viewers, a nation can absorb newcomers, a nation can welcome refugees, a nation can grow through migration, but none of these objectives eliminate the state's primary duty. The protection of citizens remains the first obligation of government, and that has been lost. When random acts of severe public violence occur anywhere in the world, citizens inevitably ask whether that obligation has been fulfilled. And the question is now being asked throughout much of the Western world. And the answer governments provide may determine not only future migration policy, but future public trust and safety itself. The migration debate ultimately becomes a trust debate because citizens can tolerate change far more easily than they can tolerate the belief that their government no longer controls the risks it has introduced into their societies. I'm Dr. J.W. Ayoub, Theologist. Bye for now.